Yeah.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Fabian for Liberty. So is China firing the first shot, as I've talked about now for years, in wanting a gold-backed currency? Let's find out. So Zero Hedge had an article today, zerohedge.com. Did China just fire the first salvo towards a new gold currency? That's the article here, as you can see, from zerohedge.com. And it goes on to talk about how they're basically the People's Bank of China, the guy who runs all of that, Yao Yongdong, excuse if I just totally murdered that, those of you that are watching in China, has called for a new Bretton Woods system. Isn't that interesting? Now, for most of you that may not know what Bretton Woods is, let me just educate a little bit here and go back into the time machine to 1945. After World War II, Europe is totally on fire, destroyed from World War II, at least most of it. And at that point, it was the British pound sterling was the world reserve currency. But Britain had had so much debt that they, needed to do something. That's when America started to emerge. America was, at that point, the largest creditor in the world. Now they're the largest debtor. But United Kingdom, or England, had just fought two wars, World War I, which they paid a very heavy price for, and World War II. They were heavily in debt, and there needed to be a new financial world order. So the dollar at Bretton Woods was basically the world reserve currency. That's where the dollar emerged as a world reserve currency. At that point, it was supposed to be backed by gold. Well, not too long ago, George Soros and all these different front groups associated with George Soros had Bretton Woods 3. There wasn't really much fanfare about it at all. In fact, nobody would even know what Bretton Woods is. Nobody even really knows who George Soros is, if you ask just the average man on the street. And at that event, they were talking basically about the same thing, about kind of the new world economy. How's it going to work? Now, keep in mind, this is coming from a guy who, on record, you can Google this yourself and see on CNBC interviews and videos, George Soros saying how we need to move the economic growth of the world, needs to move away from the US to China. This is exactly what the model is, right? They want totalitarian states like China to be the model for America, right? So China comes out and says, hey, we need a new Bretton Woods. Keep in mind, China is the #1 buyer of gold in the world and the #1 miner of gold in the world. At some point, likely, they'll come out with some kind of announcement, formal announcement, that says, hey, by the way, we have about 4,000 to 5,000 tons of gold. The US estimated to have between 8,000 and 9,000 tons. No one's ever seen it. Unlike a lot of these other central banks that actually let people go into their vaults and say, oh, here's the gold. Vladimir Putin is taking pictures with his gold, and he's showing the world. This isn't for fun. He's showing the rest of the world, hey, everybody, we actually have gold. We have a big storage of it. What about the US? No one can go into Fort Knox and audit the gold, not even members of Congress. But in just the last couple of years, what are some other indicators with respect to the Chinese replacing the dollar as the world reserve currency? China will come out with an official statement that, hey, we want to back our currency by gold, and the Russians will follow with, oh, by the way, you want to buy our oil? You got to use the new Chinese gold-backed currency. Remember, the central component of the world reserve currency is now the petrodollar. It's not backed by gold, it's backed by oil, right? It's backed by oil, and that is coming up very soon as well. Last point, very important. History does repeat itself. Nothing does last forever. Here's a quick world reserve currency map that started, or a little time machine here, a little indicator. If you could see on the camera, if you could zoom in the camera, you'll see that Portugal had the world reserve currency in the 1400s. So, if you could zoom in. So you'll see here that Portugal had the world reserve currency in the 1400s, followed by Spain, followed by the Netherlands, followed by France around 1750 or so. Then they go into total crazy hyperinflation. Then followed by Britain, who, interestingly enough, went into massive debt and needed to have somebody else basically, in essence, bail them out with their currency. And that led to the dollar being the world reserve currency in the US, which, interestingly enough, we're in the same position that Britain was just about 65 years ago. What do you think will happen? And how do you think it'll go down? Will the dollar be the world reserve currency forever? Certainly it could still last for a decade, maybe years. But how much longer? It's hard to say. With everything happening in the world right now, the Chinese, I think, especially now, with as weak as America's at, if someone's going to make a move, it would likely happen during this time. I'm Fabian for Liberty. Thanks for watching. Check out FabianForLiberty.com. I'm out.